Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Play Metroid Fusion for the GBA. Last time, we started the game, and today we're heading into Sector 1 to take care of some atmospheric stabilizers. And I swear, this is the only point in the game I can think of where instead of going from point A to point B, whether you're taking care of some giant boss monster thing or finding a new upgrade, you're actually going out of your way to find 5 different plot MacGuffins. And I don't know, something about that just kind of screams missed opportunity for me, because when you give your player an objective like that, it actually encourages them to kind of beat off the stray path every now and then and find, like, you know, their objective along the way. And that's exactly how Sector 1 is laid out. Like, it kind of comes back in a full circle the further you go, but you're going to need to make diversions here and there to basically find, like, these set objectives if you're going to want to progress any further. And I think that's a pretty cool way to set up, you know, the tone of Metroid Fusion's progression. Because at the end of the day, this is still a Metroid game. You're still going to need to do some exploration, you know, by the end of it all. And it's, you know, getting to the objective isn't always going to be as straightforward as you think. You're still going to have some diversions, side paths, expansions to collect, all that jazz. So, yeah, definitely be on the lookout for all of those different types of things and stuff and things and stuff and things and stuff and stuff and things. I don't know where I'm going with this at all. But, yeah, these things right here, those are the atmospheric stabilizers we need to blow up. Those nasty, rock, parasitic, ugly motherfucking things. Some of them you have to take the diverged path off to find. Others are going to be in your path anyway, because at some point or another we actually will need to fight a boss monster that isn't part of the required objective just to get to the other, like, things. You know what I'm saying? That probably doesn't make much sense, you know, listening to myself repeat that statement, but it'll become more crystal clear as we go, you know, further into Sector 1, I suppose. But yeah, you still have rooms like this where you're obviously going to need to pay attention to little details like this, for example, to find different expansions. And yeah, because of this, I actually think Metroid Fusion is one of the hardest games in the series to 100%. It's definitely a lot harder than Super, in my opinion, simply because of the fact that, yeah, obviously, you're only going to be visiting most sectors twice in the game, but if you want everything, and I mean everything, you're still going to need to come back to these, like, expansions later on with the, you know, pre-acquired items to get said expansion. So there's still some form of, like, item-based progression here and there to grab certain goodies. It's just kind of absent from, like, the main progression, you know? Yeah, this sector just has everything going on here. Rocky-based caverns, the lava-based patterns, the whole 9 yards, and oh my goodness, we have parasitic space pirates. Holy shit. I'm not quite sure how they copied these things. I wonder if maybe perhaps there were some leftover space pirates in SR388 and they happened to capture some, or maybe even Galactic Federation themselves happened to capture a few space pirates. I don't really know how that ended up working out, because usually space pirates are the ones that are invading certain vessels, not the ones that are being invaded. And it makes me kind of question how they ended up getting those space pirates into custody without having someone or something bust them out, you know? And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it now. The further we get into this game, the more we start questioning, like, the ethnicities and certain ethnic qualities of the Galactic Federation that they have, you know, just as a whole, you know? Alright. Man, we're burning through Sector 1. I swear, every time I come back to this game feels shorter and shorter the more I play it. It's one of those things that you get so good at. I'm not saying I'm, like, speedrun, like, top-notch quality or anything like that, but, like, I feel like it's one of those games that it's like the more and more you play, you start to realize just how short it really is. This game is definitely shorter than Fusion, in my opinion, but I'd also say it's a little bit longer than Zero Mission as well. On average, I tend to finish this game around 2 hours or just a little under 2. It just depends on how the expansion collecting goes, because again, we're especially towards the end, because unfortunately Fusion has this thing where most of the expansions in the game can't be collected until literally the tail end of the adventure, which makes absolutely no sense to me when the final, like, climactic events of the game are pretty minimalistic as is as far as combat is concerned. So it just makes you question, what the fuck am I getting all of this unnecessary shit for? But I digress. But we'll go into more complaints about that the further we go, I suppose. I feel like this whole playthrough's just been kind of a running gag of me constantly, like, foreshadowing shit that I probably shouldn't even be talking about yet. Over there is a save station, but I don't think I quite need that right now. I'd like to at least hit the 20-minute mark or so before I decide to do something like that. Otherwise, we're gonna go fight a boss. They didn't tell us we were fighting a boss, but we're gonna sure as hell fight a boss anyway. And yeah, remember when I said previously that this game likes to make a lot of homages to previous Metroid games, like the Arachnus from the main sector, for instance? I'm pretty sure this had to have been like a reference to the Chozo statue, like monster thing from Super Metroid. Like, you can't tell me that I'm wrong on that. I am 99.9% sure that that had to have been a callback to that in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, just wait for the eye to open, jump as soon as you shoot the eye, so that way you avoid the beam that it shoots. And that's all she wrote. Pretty simple boss fight, not much more to it than that. And with that, we get the charge beam, and you better get used to this sound effect, because the charge beam, for whatever reason, is the beam we have in our possession the longest out of every beam in the game for some godforsaken reason. I don't even know why. This game has a weird infatuation with the charge beam. And I'm not even just saying that just because of how long you hold on to it before running into other beams. But it's like, you know how I was talking about the fact that, like, there are some enemies that you can't just hit with the normal beam? Sometimes, like, just using the charge beam is sometimes a better alternative than the super missiles or the missiles in some cases or scenarios or what have you. And yeah, we don't have an X-ray scope in this game, gentlemen, so, yeah, finding these extra paths off to the side can be a little bit easier said than done if you don't have a guide on hand. The closest thing you're going to get to, like, an X-ray scope in this game is when we get power bombs later down the road, which have a secondary function that allows us to find different routes and stuff that I'll be talking about in further detail later down the road. I kind of like how this one was set up. You actually had to go behind it to take care of it, which I find was kind of cool. But yeah, the charge beam kicks fucking ass, dude. What's also pretty cool is that, like Super Metroid, you can also hold your charge and jump into enemies. And I swear, it feels a lot more effective here than it does in Super Metroid, just because Samus's mobility feels a lot faster. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but it's also a little bit stronger too. And the charge beam charges way faster than it did in Super Metroid. So I won't lie, I didn't really do it a whole lot in Super Metroid, simply because I just never. It was just too slow to set up, you know? At most points or another, I just found it necessary to just shoot the beam to be done with it. In this game, however, charge jumping just feels so much more significantly useful in combat, and you have absolutely no idea how much of a blast it is. Just jumping straight into foes and being super reckless with it. Oh my goodness. Another thing that's kind of peculiar about the charge shot too is that it's one of those things where you have to kind of position perfectly to get the full benefit from. I don't know if it's like a multi-hit property or something, but like you can't just shoot like an enemy with the charge shot and then get like the full benefit of its power. It's something that you have to actually land like the whole hitbox or projectile of in order to get the full benefits. Like for instance, sometimes something that would normally take like one charge shot to kill, you might accidentally kill into two because you didn't land the full hitbox of the charge shot, you know? So it's one of those things, and I swear, I think this is probably the only game I've ever had that happen in 2, because I'm pretty sure the charge shot wasn't quite like that in Zero Mission, honestly. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit crazy. And goddamn elevators are so fucking slow. As I listened to the briefing, my thoughts turned to Adam. The real Adam understood me well. He would end orders by saying, "Any objections, lady?" He knew I wouldn't disagree. That was just his way of noting our trust. I wonder if I can trust this computer too. And yeah, in case you couldn't already tell, she named the computer Adam. That may or may not come into play later down the road. Ha ha, nudge nudge, wink wink. I say this because most people, you know, coming into this playthrough have probably already played, you know, Metroid Fusion by now. This game is literally 16 years old, and I can't believe I honestly just said that out loud. Because, man, I still remember when this game was brand new. I still had the box and booklet and everything to it, too, and I've never, like, bothered to throw that out, and I'm so glad I didn't, because, man, GBA games are so hard to preserve because of the whole cardboard box issue that Nintendo games used to have back then. And oh my god! Yeah, this looks like our unknown saboteur that's causing all sorts of trouble. I believe the SAX came from the capsule containing your infected soup parts. You use a power bomb to escape the quarantine. Oh shit, this thing means business. And yeah, one thing I should note is that, like, you know, not only are things like, you know, the Metroids being cold, you know, weak to the cold, kind of a big factor, you know, played into, like, the lore here as well. They kind of treat power bombs and shit like one of the biggest defects or most powerful things in existence in this universe. And I kind of like how they, you know, bring mention of that, too. And yeah, this is one thing we absolutely cannot fight at all. Yes, we will be running into the SAX later down the road. Yes, it's scary as fuck. And yeah, it's just so funny seeing this, because, like, when you think about it, Samus is this kick-ass bounty hunter who doesn't let anything get in her way, and by the end of the adventure, she's so decked out that literally nothing can touch her. In fact, I think she's probably, like, the most powerful, like, character canonically in the Metroid, or even Nintendo universe, for that matter. And now you have actually something that's giving Samus not only a run for her money, but could possibly, like, murder her and then some. And of all things, it's basically her goddamn suit from the previous game. That's fucking brilliant, dude. It's like basically telling the player that, oh yeah, the main enemy of this game, it's yourself. You're coming, now you get to be on the receiving end of what it's like to actually be, like, hunted down by something that, you know, you were, you know, a part of at one point. Like, you used to murder everything. Now you get to be on the receiving end of something that murders things just as hard as you did previously. And I think that's fucking brilliant. Like, of all the villains you could come up with to give Samus a run for her money, like, god fucking damn, Sakamoto. That's pretty fucking clever. But yeah, this place, going back to the whole game here, because I'm not doing a very good job talking about what we're doing on screen. So, Sector 2 appears to be pretty goddamn small. It's pretty straightforward. We have to go and find a level 1 security latch thing to gain access to the bombs, and that should be it, right? Right? You haven't played a Metroid game before. But I'll just leave the suspension in the air for that for now, because oh my god, I'm just so excited, dude. I'm so glad I'm finally playing this game and I can play it fluidly too, because I'm actually starting to get a bit more adjusted to the controls now. And, you know, using the GBA SP as a controller, while not quite as ideal as, you know, a normal GBA just because of the way the shoulder buttons are positioned, like, I think this is a much better alternative to the GameCube controller, in my opinion. Like, honestly, if you have a Game Boy player and I mean, I don't know if you would or not, because this system is so fucking old now. It's like, at this point, people are just like, lol, just download stuff on the Wii U Virtual Console. Even though, you know, you can't really do that as much anymore, because for some fucking reason, Nintendo won't bring that back for the Switch, and we have NES games that nobody wants to play, and it's, Sorry, I just want my game, I just want my GBA games. I'm a simple man with simple needs. Can I not get my GBA games for my Switch online, please? I paid 20 bucks a month, 20 bucks a year for this, just to have laggy peer-to-peer connections. No, okay, I'm fine. Stop. I'll stop being so passive-aggressive. But yeah. Now that we have the level 1 security hatch unleashed, we can go and get our morph ball bombs. And yeah, basically, there's. Unlike the previous game, where you're unlocking different hatches with different weapons, you actually can't touch a single hatch at all unless you unlock, like, the prerequisite needed to open them up in the first place. So we'll be running it through things like level 1, 2, and 3, and 4 hatches later down the road. And sometimes you're just gonna have to, like, accept fate and just turn around and go somewhere else, because these things are, like, the definition of artificial progression barriers, more or less. But yeah, in case you just now didn't hear that explosion, we can't just go back to where we were previously, like the previous sector. Nope. Looks like we're gonna have to find the long way back, and I mean the long way back. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and state it now. This map is literally just a quarter of the size of what Sector 2 really is. So like Metroid's Super or any of the other games that come after this, not only do you have your standardized, you know, regular rooms on the map, which show, like, rooms you haven't been to yet, you still have your hidden rooms, like the green rooms here, for example, that aren't on the map. And that's kind of Sector 2's gimmick here, is that most of the map is actually, you know, preoccupied with green rooms, meaning that this is when I feel like this is officially the point in the game when the game basically tells the player that, oh yeah, by the way, this is a Metroid game. Here, get lost for the next 20 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, you thought you were going in a straightforward path for a second. Now you're actually having to find your way back, and you gotta find it on your own terms. And on top of that, you're not told how to get back there either, and you don't have an objective bubble to go to either. So you kind of have to pick apart the pieces of where you need to go by raw exploration, Metroid style, baby. And like in previous Metroid games, bombs allow you to jump as well. But the really shitty things about bombs in Metroid Fusion is that the defuse, like, the time detonator on these things are really, really fucking slow. Unless you were doing a TAS or something, it's pretty much impossible to do multiple bomb jumps now, like it was in, you know, Super Metroid and even Zero Mission, you know? These things are so slow that the best you're gonna get out of them is one-hop bomb jumps only. And I remember for the longest time that, like, I didn't know how to get in here, because I was like, oh wait, morph balls can't jump, at least not yet, what do I do? And then I remember watching the preview. It's like, for some reason, like, the preview at the beginning of the game actually shows you some cool tech you can do. Like, I remember watching it, and this was back in the day when, like, actually watching shit and paying attention to, like, outside details that didn't involve strategy guides was your way of learning things. Because in the preview of Metroid Fusion, not only are they showing you that you can do bomb jumps, they can show you how to do wall jumps and do shine sparks, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how to, though. It just kind of leaves, like, the possibility of it open, and you just have to kind of go and explore it for yourself. And I think it's kind of cool how Fusion showcases that, you know? Like, it doesn't tell you, like, it shows you that it exists, but it's really up to the player to discover how, you know, to do this without, like, hand holding them all the way, you know? And I think that's kind of fucking brilliant, you know? Like, this game really encourages you to really play around with Samus's toolkit. Whereas in Super Metroid, it kind of, like, yeah, in some cases it felt necessary, but you never really needed it to, like, get most of the items and stuff. Sometimes here, it's absolutely necessary to do it, and it's just one of those things where it's like you gotta piece together these puzzle pieces, and then when you finally do it, it's like, oh! And that's just, like, one of the satisfying things about, you know, Fusion, you know? It's like, it's linear, But because of how it is, how it leaves stuff up to the player's interpretation of how to find out different solutions, at the end of the day, this is still a Metroid game, baby. Which is why Metroid Fusion, among other reasons, is way more of a Metroid game than Other M could ever hope to fucking be. And so, yeah, it's like, I definitely feel like this is the part in time of video game history where, like, it's introducing, like, certain elements of building, you know, together these puzzle pieces, too. Because, like, if you saw earlier, like, you saw that Morph Ball jumps were pretty vital to, like, you know, spawning these, getting your way around. And this whole sector, because of how pivotal, you know, Morph Ball bombs are to exploring different areas and stuff, Sector 2 basically, you know, encourages it in full tow. And I can't think of a better place to showcase a new weapon and, you know, get a good feel of how, you know, to discover new areas in a Metroid game would be, you know, traditionally than, you know, Sector 2 with its Morph Ball bomb utilization, you know. And not only that, you have dead ends, you have routes that look, you know, impassable. You gotta do some thinking, man. Like this, for example. Like, you see this, and then you go up here, and it's like, what's the point of this room? Looks like a dead end. Maybe. Perhaps. It's one of those things where you have to really, like, pay attention, and just kind of, you know, based off you have to kind of really get a good feel for, like, what you have in your kit to really get around here, you know? It's not one of those things where, like, you automatically have everything available to you, and you can just kind of do everything. You have to kind of, like, problem solve. Like, here, for example, like, you thought, oh, yeah, this is a rectangular shaped, like, looking thing. I can bomb this, right? No. It's showing you that some things can be bombed and others can't. But at the same time, you're still encouraged to do it anyway. I mean, you're still encouraged to kind of, like, keep an eye out for those sort of things. You can't just be like, oh, this is, like, just free bomb fodder. I can probably just find my way easily just for this, you know? Sector 2 is literally the embodiment of getting lost. And I remember the first time I played Fusion, like, I was so stuck in Sector 2, I must have tried to restart the file 2 or 3 times just to make sure I wasn't stuck, because at some point or another, like, that one hatch we just jumped in, like, you know, back then I didn't know anything about wall jumping, so, like, I thought, like, I was stuck at a dead end and I didn't know what to do. And I come into this room, I see this hatch, and I'm like, okay, so I see this, and obviously, like, this thing's here, so there's got to be a way in here, right? But, like, it doesn't look like it, because it's often a closed-off room, and so I just kind of, so now, the game's kind of asking you the question, okay, so let's piece this together for a second here. So, I've learned that these things, however, like, even though these are shaped a peculiar way, that doesn't necessarily grant me the means of knowing for a fact of whether or not these things are bombable. But, at the same time, I can come to terms with the fact that this could potentially be above another room. And this is where the map really comes into play here, and how I eventually piece together this puzzle. So, the clever thing that Sector 2 here does is that you want to come over here, and so you run into a few peculiar looking rooms, both that look like they seemingly have not much of the way of purpose, and then you run into another dead end. But we've learned at the end of the day that sometimes dead ends don't necessarily mean dead ends. And then we realize, oh wait, we happen to be right above the boss room, right? So, we shoot the wall, or bomb it, whichever you may prefer. And yeah, that's kind of how you piece together the puzzle. And yeah, it's Sector 2 just does, I love Sector 2, dude. Sector 2 just does an amazing job at piecing together all of these different elements that you can put into play for figuring out how to discover all of these secret areas. And it's not just Sector 2. This is something to expect through the duration of the game. Because remember, you're simply told where your objective is, you know? You're not told how to get there. That is still, like, problem-solving / Metroid-style exploration that you have to piece together on your own. Which is why Metroid Fusion is, at the end of the day, a Metroid game, and not just some random linear bullshit, you know? That was fast. Yeah, this thing isn't too much of an issue. Just wait for it to open its mouth, stand underneath it, run away, rinse and repeat. The bosses are pretty simple at first, but some of them can get pretty fucking crazy later on. So with this in tow, we have the high jump and the jump ball. So in Metroid 2 and Super Metroid, the jump ball was actually a separate upgrade, whereas it was something you had to obtain separately from the high jump boost to utilize for the morph ball to actually, you know, jump. But in this game, they actually combine it into one upgrade altogether. And I think that's a pretty nifty idea, actually. It makes it to where the high jump doesn't feel like 100% redundant. And oh, boy. What happened here? It's quite a change in scenery. Even though, for some reason, Samus Returns kind of brings back the whole idea of making the high jump and the spring ball like separate upgrades for some reason, and I still can't seem to piece together why they did something like that, but nostalgia, I guess? I couldn't fucking tell you. Anywho, I've reached my minute length, so next time on Let's Play Metroid Fusion for the Game Boy Advance, we will officially head out of Sector 2 with our newly acquired upgrades that our computer didn't tell us anything about, and we'll find out what our next objective is. So thank you guys for watching, and see you guys then.